Hi all, welcome to yet another video of Measurements and Instrumentation video series. In this video, we will be discussing about the classification of instruments. In general, instruments are classified into absolute instruments and secondary instruments. Absolute instruments give the magnitude if the quantity under measurement terms of physical constraints of the instruments. As the name implies, absolute instruments are like direct method of measurements, whereas secondary instruments are calibrated by comparison with absolute instruments which have already been calibrated. Hence, secondary instruments are like indirect method of measurements. Here in this secondary instruments, it is further classified as deflection type and null type. So basically the secondary instruments have various classifications based on different categories. So the first category under which the secondary instruments are classified is based on the way they present the results of measurements. For example, the classifications are deflection type and null type secondary instruments. So these two types we have already seen in our laboratory classes, wherein which the secondary instruments we have seen in labs. Deflection type instruments, example ammeter, voltmeter with a dial wherein which a pointer moves, is an example for deflection type instruments. So these provides a basis for determining quantity and measurements using a mechanical displacement of a pointer or a moving system. Whereas null type instruments are zero or null indication instruments, which leads to the determination of magnitude of a measured quantity. For example, if we have a galvanometer, if there is a current flow, or you can say it as if we see DC bridges or AC bridges, you have a galvanometer which indicates zero deflection, which means that the system is balanced. So instead of giving the actual indication of current, it gives zero indications, which gives the measurement of an unknown resistance in case of DC bridge. So there are instruments which gives null type deflections. So the next category of secondary instrument is based on the effect of electric current or voltage upon which their operation depends. Certain instruments will use magnetic effect, certain instruments use heating effect, certain instruments use chemical effect to perform the measuring operations. So based on that, the secondary instruments are classified as magnetic effect instruments, heating effect instruments, chemical effect instruments, electrostatic effect instruments, and electromagnetic induction effect instruments. So the examples of these instruments have been listed. So if we take ammeter, voltmeter, basically in previous days we have magnetic instruments, and then it's being developed as heating effect instruments, and then we have chemical effect instruments which is used in DC ampere hour meters, and later on we have ammeters and voltmeters in electrostatic effects, and in recent times or the day ammeters and voltmeters which we are now using is electromagnetic induction equipments. So generally the magnetic effect and electromagnetic induction effect are utilized for the construction of commercial instruments. Some of the instruments are also named based on the effect, such as electrostatic voltmeter, induction instruments, etc. So the next category of classification of secondary instruments are based on the nature of their operations. So they are classified as indicating instruments, recording instruments, and integrating instruments. Indicating instruments, as the name implies, it indicates the quantity to be measured by means of a pointer which moves on a scale. So example, ammeter, voltmeter, whatever meters which we are using now in labs, which has a pointer that moves on a scale, is a indicating type instruments. Whereas recording type instruments record continuously the variation of any electrical quantity with respect to time. As we have discussed, CRO is a recording instrument, so it records the variation of electrical inputs with respect to time. So it has a series of values measured and recorded over a period of time. So in principle, these are indicating instruments, but it has a permanent continuous record arrangement, so which can be made into a chart or a dial by retrieving the data from the recordings. And finally, we are seeing we have integrating instruments. So these instruments record the consumption of total quantity of electricity or energy during a particular period of time. A good example for integrating instruments are our energy meter we are using at home. So they won't record for a particular period of time, whereas it gives a record of the consumption of total energy being used over a period of time. So it will not give that for this so and so date they have so and so date at so and so time the power was this, the energy was this, and for a so and so date and so time the power of the energy was this. Not like that. They will give the reading as the total energy consumed by the particular consumer over a period of time. So these instruments will give a totalized value over a specified period of time. And the next classification of secondary instrument is based on the type of or the kind of current it measures, which is very known to us. If an ammeter measures the DC current, it is a DC ammeter. And we have alternating current instruments specifically used to measure alternating currents, and there are instruments which measures both DC and AC currents, voltages as well. So those are called as DC or AC instruments. Again, the further classification of secondary instruments are based on the methods used. If we perform a direct measurement, it is direct measuring instruments. If we perform an indirect method of measurements, then it is called as comparison instruments. So example, ammeter, voltmeter or direct measuring instruments, because it converts the amount of measuring quantity or the measurement directly into an equivalent energy, and the output is being displayed or recorded directly. So for example, in an ammeter, the given input current is being converted into a mechanical motion using a variable conversion element, and then the output is given directly by the movement of a pointer. Whereas comparison instruments measure the unknown quantity by comparison with the standard. So the examples are DC and AC bridges, potentiometers. So there is no exact or a direct measurement, but whereas the unknown quantity will be compared with different known quantities, and the resultant value will be given as the output. So that's the end of the classification of instruments. So basically we have two types, absolute and secondary, and the secondary instruments have a vast variety of classifications based on different factors. So I think now you have a clear idea about what are the vast classifications available in measuring instruments. Hope you find this video useful. We'll be meeting you in the next topic of this video series. Thank you.